Alright, this is part 4. This is going to wrap up the Tatula SV TW series. Today I'm going to be breaking it down, show you guys the insides. I'm not going to go over the full service, the cleaning and all that other type of stuff. I'm just going to show you guys the insides. Give you guys a couple tips of what I do to organize my stuff, like all the internals when I take a reel apart. And then talk about my overall impressions at the end. Okay, now we're going to take the reel apart. I'm not going to show the whole cleaning on here, that's just kind of a waste of time, but be able to look at the internals, kind of see what makes the reel go. How I organize everything, I put the handle, I just kind of go just like how you'd read a book. And this is always a 10mm. I haven't came across a Daiwa reel that isn't. I think the Ryoga maybe isn't, but for the most part it's 10mm. I just have a socket like this. A lot of Shimano's are also 10mm. This Tatula, just like some of the other newer Daiwa reels, that has the spring-loaded drag star, kind of like how Shimano's do. And the biggest thing I'm looking to do is just put a little bit of lube in there. It felt like it was a little dry, but it's still smooth, had some power. Overall not too bad for an out-of-the-box reel. So I switched to a standard. And let me take the spool out. I'm not sure if there's a screw underneath kind of where the spool is. Sometimes there is. I had no problem with the inductor sticking either. Sometimes people get the inductor to stick, like it kind of sticks in this out position like this, and it limits your braking, but this one hasn't done that yet. And there is not any screw. That's not, so all of the screws are going to be on the side plate. Looks like there's only 3. Yeah, some reels you have like 5 screws that you gotta take out, and then they're different sizes too, so you gotta keep track of which one is which. So what I do to do that, when I pull them out, I'll have it however I want to. I usually have it so the top is away from me, and then that's gonna be how the diagram is. So I have 1, 2, and then 3. That's how I'll put them up here. See, just like that. And make sure you hold the side plate on. Sometimes the springs for the yoke that holds the pinion gear on, sometimes your side plate falls out and those things go shooting across your living room, and then you got to order more. See, there's one that fell out right there. Yeah, it came pretty dry. I feel like there's a little tiny bit of lube on there. A lot of plastic internals, which isn't a bad thing. Something they did though, they honeycombed the inside of that, kind of, if you can see that. I've never seen that before. There is a bearing underneath the cast control knob. I don't know if you can see that. There's a bearing there. One bearing for the okay. That gear, it's a pretty good size gear. I know I had the T3 Ballistic in the 8.1 to 1. That was a much smaller gear, which I can feel that there's a lack of power. With this reel, I haven't felt that as had any real lack of power that I wouldn't expect otherwise using an 8.1 to 1. Like you saw in part 3 on the water. I was throwing spinner baits and some chatterbait stuff like that. There's a little bit of lube on that, not too much. So, yeah, there's a little bit of play in the drive shaft, but that's going to be like that if you don't have everything else holding it on. I didn't feel any problems with this reel. I know sometimes what I'll do is take, let's say, like a hole puncher for paper. You can do that with like some plastic, you know, from like a soda bottle or something like that. And then you can trim it down and put it underneath the bearing that's in here, and that'll tighten things up a little bit. As you can see, I'm not going to go that far into it, but you can take these 2 screws off. See how you have to line everything up, and there's 2 screws there. And then that's how you'll be able to take off the drive shaft and then get to the bearing that's under there. I'm not sure if it's a bearing or not. Actually, I will do that right now. And let me get it organized first. So I keep all the like parts together. That way you're not missing anything. And I'm going to grab a smaller screwdriver. Oh, that's in there tight. And it's a little bit different design than I'm used to with a little bit the older Daiwa reels. They're not put together like this. Okay, there's a bearing there. And a lot of times what I do is I will grease frame bearings. Well, there is a shim in there too. A lot of times I'll grease frame bearings just because it makes it a little smoother. It's a little bit more effort on the retrieve, but it definitely makes it smoother, which I prefer. It's not going to spin as long when you spin the handle, kind of free spooling it. It's not going to last as long, but that's not a performance thing. The fish don't care how many times your handle spins when you spin the handle. So just put a little bit of this excess grease around here and here. It's not a big deal. And what I should do is be cleaning all this stock grease off, but it wasn't that bad before, and I'm not looking to put that much time into it. I'm not going to take apart the worm gear either. So that's what the inside looks like. I know a lot of people speculating on what the inside looks like, and they care a lot. The thumb bar is nice and tight. I don't feel any scraping with the engaging of it or anything like that. Okay, so you guys saw how the internals are. And that's the way that I think the Daiwa is going to be going forward, with the the slit in the worm gear like that. Also the spring-loaded drag star. I think it's just going to be standard because the SV TW I'm pretty sure has it, and I know that the Steez SV TW has it. Yeah, overall I really like the reel. I don't think it hinders too much casting distance. I know it's noticeable, but the control is nice. Like, I put this reel in the hands of one of my friends who hardly ever fishes, let alone with a bait caster, and he was throwing chatterbaits and spinnerbaits, stuff like that, from shore with the wind blowing in his face and it was raining. I think he had like 1 backlash, and that's because he hit a piece of brush when he was casting, which that's going to happen to any reel. but he was able to pick it out even without any sort of experience picking out backlashes, so it wasn't bad at all. Yeah, I know that day he landed a couple pike and then a decent sized walleye too. So I mean, it's not just, he was using smaller grubs, and he was using chatterbait and spinnerbait as well. But yeah, it can definitely be used for, you know, smallmouth, largemouth, walleye, some smaller pike stuff. I mean, I wouldn't be ripping like big bucktails or anything like that. But yeah, this is the last, you know, part 4 of 4. So, and my other videos won't be going over the Tatula SV directly, but I'll be using it in the future, you know, frog and stuff like that. So make sure you guys subscribe and comment below if you want to see anything else with the lure, with the reel. I know I didn't cast a huge variety of lures in the part 3 video, so just let me know down below. Thanks.